Right.
And we'll start to see everybody coming in. We've got people joining us. Great to see Nick has arrived. And we've got Steph. Long time no see, Steph. And we've got Gordon, we've got Jigna. Long time no see, Jigna. We've got one of our lovely members, Coral. Lovely to see you, Coral. Why don't people put where they are in the world, because we're just getting everybody joining. Where are they in the world and what time it is? Got loads of people. I'm just going to put in, I am in Bedfordshire and it is 2 o'clock. I can't spell Bedfordshire. Steph is in Leicester. Coral is in Milton Keynes. Guess what? We've got Hitton. Hello, Hitton. Hello, Gordon. Got some lovely people here. We've got Robin Shropshire. Nick, it's 9 a.m. in Toronto. Good morning. I'm guessing Toronto is now warm. It's now warm, which is good. Right, I think, Amy in Texas, it's 8 a.m. Did you know, Lorna, that you are a global star?
I have friends in Texas, actually. I have lots of friends in Texas.
Yeah. Well, I know you're a global star, but your fame is going wide. Right. I think we'll get started now. For those that you don't know, Lorna, she's a good friend of mine, someone that the club members and I rely on for honest, unvarnished truth. Lorna runs our daily power up call on a Tuesday, which is where it's kind of like a drop-in clinic, isn't it? Where members come along to get some advice, some help, some friendships, some networking. And definitely the Tuesday, we call it the war room, because it's when you're going to get the most hard-hitting advice from Lorna. That is what it is. So for the last 3 years, Lorna has done something what most of us think is unachievable. She's turned around an FD-led practice which has 100% advisory, 100% advisory work. So there's nothing. You don't do stat accounts, you don't do personal tax returns, you don't get out of bed for less than £1,000. Yes, you did hear that correctly. For those of you in Canada and in the US, dollars wise, about $1,300. I don't know the Canadian, whatever. But when you started with us, you had 3 kind of core big clients who were all due to roll off within 18 to 24 months. Whereas now, fast forward to today, your practice is now 215 turnover, with 10 core clients and a team of 9 people, including Lorna. So Lorna, it is both a delight and a privilege. So why don't you just tell people, Lorna, a little bit of potted history of the growth of your practice?
Yeah, sure. We've been in business for 10 years this year. So yay.
Yay.
But 10 years ago, it was a very different story. Like a lot of people, you need a life event to kick you at the bottom, and mine was I was made redundant from a company that I'd invested a lot emotionally, etc. And as a result, I found myself obviously needing to find work, and I started a limited company purely and simply so that I could do interim work. But I'd been shaken a little, so I decided to keep it on the side and just do like the odd bit as a safety net, as it were. And that's really where Leonard Business Services started. It was, a means to an end and a safety net. I went on to work for other companies until 2016. But in 2016, I had another life event in that the company that I'd taken from basically a startup and being the second employee to right through growth and sadly right through closing the business. I was out of a job again, but this time there was absolutely no consideration about finding another job, and I went totally full-time working for myself as a freelancer, an outsourced FD. As Heather says, I worked with to start off with the client that I'd been doing on the side gig, wanted more time, so that fitted nicely. I actually got another client from the company that went out of business. That was good, and soon I had 3 clients that I was working with, and I was doing the same old as everything everybody does, charge by the day, cart your bottom off to their offices, however many days a week or whatever it was, and just behaved as a freelancer. But in 2019, I was had enough of this. You know, I wanted a proper business.
Don't we all?
the one that I could scale and didn't have to think about 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, etc. The numbers clearly didn't stack up on that, but I didn't really know how to do it any differently. And I came across Heather, funnily enough, as part of Accountex 2019's marketing. And I noticed that she was quite local to me, so I just made some inquiries. And we really haven't looked back since. So we basically signed up to the club at the start of 2019, and really things have changed completely. So like Heather says, instead of me carting myself on site, I don't. It's a completely virtual business. Yeah, it's now £250,000 in turnover size, and you know, I'm on the telly, so to speak, talking about what I did. So you know, that's where we are.
And that's one of the things I love about talking with you. You're so humble. You're absolutely so humble. So apart from deciding to go for it, and luckily having a few companies go under and make you redundant to help you go for it, what other things have accelerated your growth? I know you've said joining the club, but what were some of the real specifics that have accelerated your growth?
Really thinking about the type of customers that you wanted to work with. I mean, prior to meeting up with Heather, I had a couple of complete disasters about adding new clients on, you know, really horror stories, which I won't go into now. But you know, I completely knew the sort of customer I didn't want to work with, but it was a lot harder to identify the sort of customer I did want to work with. I guess the main thing was I was coming at it from probably a different viewpoint to most of the people that we work with in the club, in the fact that I come entirely from industry, and so I was effectively my own client. And so I could think about what I would want if I was on the other side of the table. And Heather and the group helped me sort of distill that thought process, really. And it carries on, and it carries on the whole time. My talk at Accountex was basically the final stage in bringing that all together. But yeah, in terms of growth, it was really understanding the type of client that I want to work with, and the fact that I'm not going to be looking for hundreds of leads every week, even every month, actually, or year. So it was kind of accepting that I had stumbled upon something that was a bit different, and we were breaking new ground as to how to approach it.
Yeah, I do remember one, I think it was about a 3-4 month period where you suddenly had about 5 leads that could land at the same time.
I was like,
and this was just like, whoa, this is like, luckily it all worked out in the end. And
that was Christmas 2019. I had 5 hot leads on the go, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know how. Help. But you know, they dispersed. We did win every single one of them, but they naturally dispersed over a manageable period of time, which again then brought me back to sort of looking at processes and systems and stuff, because you can't carry on like that, you know.
Yeah, and I remember a lot of the stuff we did to start with was you as a business really thinking, how are we different? And what do our clients really value? Because it's really easy to go out there and become a cookie cutter, isn't it? Oh, well, I'll just be the part-time interim FD, or I'll be the accountant that does the virtual FD but has the compliance services. And you end up copying somebody else. And actually your growth really has come from, hasn't it? Because you went back to the client base. You remembered what it was like to sit in their shoes and to find out what it was they really valued. And as you said, it wasn't the management accounts at the end of the day, was it?
Not at all. In fact, it's very little about that. I'm going to caveat that, because when we get into a business, it may not be the management accounts, but there is a lot of data that eventually morphs out of it that is really valued. So
yes,
the
yeah,
data is
eventually.
valued.
Yeah.
But you know what? I used to, one of my best clients, I just have to give up like an hour on a Friday evening. Why, of all things, he sits in his tractor doing the ploughing. Apparently, you don't need to watch where you're going on a tractor. And basically running through the week and, just listening to him ramble on about all sorts of things, not necessarily about the company that we work with at all. And it invariably ends up, it comes into a little bit of a coaching, mentoring session. And the guy goes off to the weekend, with his head in the right space. I may have given him a few raps on the knuckles if he hasn't done some stuff that he ought to have done or is not considered stuff. But yeah, all the way around, it's kind of like that hour is what he values.
Yeah.
He pays me a lot of money compared with a lot of people for the privilege of that.
Yeah. And interesting, as you say, it's one of the things that you said that really helped you springboard was being able to describe why you're different. So as you said, it's that proactivity. I know you've renegotiated supplier contracts that you will go in and chase the whip. You'll be the difficult conversation that the MD can't, you're far, far more than what people would expect, because we talk about you more as an interim COO and a real board level partner. But one of the other things I've seen that you do is very quickly you learn from your mistakes.
Oh, yeah, and I make enough of them that there's a lot to learn, I have to say. And it's not all about me. Do you know what I mean? This is a team. We're 9 people now, and the people that I've got working with me are carefully selected for the different skill sets that they bring, and so that they can temper some of the less admirable qualities that I bring to the party. Now, yeah, every mistake is only worth it if you learn something from it. And marketing in particular is an area that I have excelled myself in making mistakes. I've probably, I know nothing. The downside of being in industry accountants is that, generally speaking, your customers, your employers keep you so far away from the customers that it's like you'll pass on monkeypox to them or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not within my core set of experiences. So marketing and sales, not me. So I don't really got the first idea. So I have managed to go to people that have completely and utterly ripped me off for marketing. I've paid for a website that doesn't work properly. Do you know what I mean? I've spent a year working with someone who's basically done bugger all. All these things, and I've learnt the errors of my ways by working with Heather and the team to some degree, but also just because you can only knock so many things down before you go duh. It's not working.
I think actually since we've started to work, you're a lot better about getting the right number of leads through. You're a lot more confident about this stuff. But I think there's 2 things that I've really seen. You've gone from a business that was Lorna and was all about Lorna turning up and delivering, to a business now that is genuinely scalable with a team around you that you can put in to do the work. So one of the things I know that you've become a lover of, and actually it's one of your best ways of staying top of mind with introducer sources, is LinkedIn. So what is it you're doing with LinkedIn and how you're doing it?
Well, I think that when I started working with you, I was on LinkedIn, but I didn't really say anything or wasn't very present. And now I'm quite present.
Yes.
And I'm probably not as present right now as I was maybe 6 months ago. But, and that probably needs to change a bit. But I just now find it's a natural place for me to communicate. I've just been completely honest in my posts, and when we were in lockdown, there was some really funny things going on, and I just wrote them, and I found that I wrote in a way that could be both funny and learn, there could be something meaningful out of it at the same time. And it was a bit weird because I found that people were like saving my post until, like, I don't know, they're in the bath or something, and I wasn't a bit sure whether or not I liked that too much.
Yes, I'm your bath time companion. No.
But
No.
but I just found that it had struck a nerve. And actually I'd see that, I'm not suggesting that it was me at all, but I've seen more of that on LinkedIn. More of people say, oh, it's not Facebook, but it's not Facebook. I'm not sitting there going, what bin is it today, which is what I normally see on Facebook. But as far as the LinkedIn, I genuinely, people, the world is so automated, and our industry is so automated, that I feel that we're crying out for somebody just to actually admit that they're not screwing everything to the floor. It's not all about what the computer says or computer doesn't say, and that they're human beings behind all of this. And actually, every single firm of accountants is at some point probably a small business in their own right, and that's their customer base. So actually, they know they're walking the walk at the same time. So why not just say that? And so that's basically what I've been trying to do ever since I was cajoled to actually write something on LinkedIn.
I remember those rather painful few kind of, let's get this out of you, and how long those first posts took you. But I think none of us are going to forget your escapades with putting up TVs and windows with your husband.
Yeah. They're interesting.
Yes, thank goodness lockdown has finished, so you pay for somebody else to do it.
Yeah, it's just a two-way thing, isn't it? It's that it gave me a lot of fodder. It's a lot harder for me to find these funny anecdotes these days. So I kind of sometimes wish I was stuck here again, then I could have more to write about. But
it's interesting. It's not just about you turning up and posting. I know that you've really considered who are your best sources of referrals, and you've used LinkedIn to search to find them, chat with them, and then if they seem to be nice, have a physically meet them in person, and you get work through that route. But also, one of the things you are continually doing is explaining normal accountants do this is what Leonard Bernard Business Services do, and you really talk about, so you do quite a lot of, so this is what we've been talking with our customers today, this is what our customers really rated. So you're very, very good about talking about your difference and what we do.
Absolutely. I mean, it's two reasons for doing that. Is the first one is just practicality. I've not set this business up to deal with one-man bands who want their end-of-year tax returns. Anybody, so on our website, we turn around and say, don't bother, because I don't have the time to be able to deal with those things. So it's important to be clear. But the second one is more important, is we absolutely believe in what we're doing and the service that we're, it's like in the DNA of it's the culture of the business. And, it's important that people get that, because if it's not the sort of thing you're after, it's not worth coming to us.
So since you've done this kind of very proactive on LinkedIn, what's been some of the difference? Yes, I know you've got leads and I know you've got more of a network, but what are some of the difference you've seen?
What, for the business, you mean?
Yeah, for the business and yourself personally.
Well, being a virtual business, maybe sadly, but I believe that my LinkedIn network is like my mates.
So it's good, isn't it?
Yeah. So and a lot of them, Coral's in the audience, and she's helped me out on a practical side, but it's lovely to see, and like to meet her in the flesh in Accountex is absolutely wonderful. But it's great. I don't, it's great, and I didn't have that before. So for me, it's a lifeline to the outside world as much as it is a source of lead generation, and actually more for me, credibility building.
And actually, in these days of it's hard to find good people. Your associates find you, don't you?
They do,
often,
absolutely.
you know, they hear about what you do, they love what you do, and they say, Lorna, can we work together? And Nick's just asked a question. The business stats, so turnover is 250k, but bear in mind that that's, you know, you almost lost 250k to then build it up to 250k again. So you've actually generated about £500,000 of business. Head count is 9, of which some of those are permanent, part-time, and the rest of them are freelance. Is that right, Lorna?
Yeah, I worked out the FTE. I think Gareth helped me work that out, and we worked it out. It was about 3.5 full-time equivalents in our team to generate that, including me. That is.
Yeah. And then you've got a bank of freelancers that you work with.
Yeah.
Now, this is an interesting point. So you've got a page on your website where you actually say what you don't do. Do you want to explain that?
Well, yeah, because we are completely, you know, if anybody wants that end of year stuff, then we're just not the right people to work with. So we may as well be honest and say that up front. There are way better suited people to do that work than I'll ever be, or my team will ever be. We are hard coded into running the finance back office, if you like, of a business. You know, and to us, the year-end accounts are 1 day a year, whereas we're on the clock 365 days a year.
Yeah.
You know, the way that we present our information, if something goes from in one period to another period, it may seem insignificant because it's all in the same financial year, but actually it's bloody important. Excuse me.
So,
you know, for funding or, you know, credit checking, all that sort of stuff. It's so important.
Yeah.
Nothing missed otherwise.
You're very much a forward thinker. So you've alluded to that point where you had some sudden growth, where you got those 5 warm leads all arrived in a period of about 4 or 5 weeks, and you were like, this LinkedIn stuff works, I remember it. You know, after all, let's people know, I know Nick's interested in the stats, but a new core client is often 10 to 15% of Lorna's turnover. So how have you coped with that sudden growth?
Brilliant staff, I would say, absolutely brilliant staff. People, they are trailblazers in their own right. You know, for example, in the last 2 months, I've just gone, yeah, no problem. We can just take on that interim reporting role for you. Don't worry, we'll sort it out. And we did. You know, it's very, very lucrative to us, but, you know, they get thrown curveballs the whole time. Our work is very, you know, it's not very, you know, there are a lot of core elements that you can, you know, get down into a pat, but it's really our ability to react that is quite getting us noticed at the moment. It's not something that we'd really thought about, but because we now have such really good understanding of certain systems, and when I say systems, I don't necessarily mean like software. I mean like the ways businesses work, the interactions and outputs. We've been able to literally come in like the cavalry and effectively hold up a situation, you know, hold the fort where somebody key has not been around, or help that key person drive change in the business where they couldn't have done it without the support. And to be honest with you, I'm finding rather peculiarly, we've had this discussion, that one of my core customer bases are actually other FDs. So it's FDs that really want to affect change in industry. But, you know, for whatever reason, they haven't got the internal skill set. And I suppose it's even more important now with like recruiting and stuff. You know, it's like we hit the ground running, whereas maybe an internal feel wouldn't.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer your question, Steph. Is, you know, one of the ways that Lorna is able to scale up so quickly or scale down so quickly is that at least half of her staff are on a freelance basis, and you know, Steph is asking, where do you find them? And so the first thing I know that Lorna, she's always looking. She met, I think, was it Amanda in the pub and just thought you'd be awesome, and ended up, was it Amanda in the pub?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, not in a hey, this is an interview. You literally just met Amanda in the pub. So the first thing is being really alert to who is around you. The second thing is you're very, very good at going, hang on a minute, you'd be better used in that respect. So you're prepared to shift staff to where you see the talent. But most of all, Steph, team members find Lorna, and they often start as freelance. They're always brought into the team so that they're in the regular team huddles. So by the time they're on the first client for LBS, they know how LBS work. They're already part of the team with, you know, they're just on the bench type stuff. So they do that. The other thing is Lorna's become ISO 9001 qualified. So all the internal process of how LBS work are documented. So actually it doesn't take that much time to get a new team member on board and delivering to the quality that Lorna wants. So I hope that answers that question, Steph, for you. The other thing, Lorna, is you're prepared to say to new leads, we can't work with you until then, you know, you're prepared to say no, aren't you? We don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I was just going to add to that on the like always looking. What I predominantly did is like speak with someone, and I would make a decision that I had X amount of money that I was willing to bet on them. So, you know, sometimes it's only a small amount, you know, maybe 10 hours a month or something, but I would make that bet, and I would say to them, okay, I like you, you know, I'm prepared to guarantee you 10 hours a month for 6 months at my risk. At the end of it, we'll have a discussion about whether or not that is a further ongoing thing, you know, or not. But so far, I've always managed to find the work to turn that amount of hours into more hours, you know, because we've got more clients on the basis of that. But I've always been willing to make a bet on a good person, one way or another.
So there's been times, and I know you and I have sat down and you've gone, it's all gone. You know, at one point you thought 60% of your business was about to be sold or moved on in a 3 to 6 month period. And when you've only got 10 core clients, you know, the impact of 6 of them getting kind of sold or we're about to take it in-house is rather big. So, and this hasn't been the first time, you know, we've had those conversations about when some of those legacy clients that you had were going to roll off and how quickly could you roll off them. So how do you come back from this stuff? How do you kind of manage to put your head up high, step out on LinkedIn and go, I'm still here, darlings?
Well, first of all, I'm kind of hardwired, as Heather says, to look on the future, right? So my brain works in a way that means that if I see anything on my indicators that suggests that there's a change, then I will automatically be in the fact that I think that they might move on mode. So I'll be the first to admit that sometimes I am perhaps pushing the balloon up slightly earlier than it may need to be. But as far as I'm concerned, it's early enough for me to be able to see the danger and do something to mitigate. So I did have a position where I believed that 60% of my business was at risk, and that bothered me clearly. And so I was in mitigation mode. When it came down to it, I did lose a client, but because I had worked at it, and you know, I had an opportunity to take on a new client, so that was out the way. The others I steadied by just doing what I do. So one of them was on shaky ground financially, so rolled my sleeves up, worked with them, and we got them onto non-shaky ground, and that involved a management buyout. So, you know, you kind of make your own luck in that respect. And the other one, I was just getting tied up with scariness because everything else seemed to be going to hell in the handcart, and that was perfectly fine. But yeah, it's kind of like, you know, I think that having an early warning system, and even if it does come along with a bit of panic, and not panic, concern, it gives you an opportunity to do something about it and mitigate or avoid.
Yeah,
Which is
I
kind of
think
what I did.
I think as well, you're a really giving person. You've always looked after other people. So I know that when you kind of said, help, I need a bit of help, everyone in the club rallied around you. So having that supportive community, having the coach that you can reach out to, really, really did help you in those times. Also, you have this thing called an emergency plan, don't you?
Yes,
Are you going to explain what the emergency plan is?
you'll have to remind me. No.
So your emergency plan is, so one of the things that Lorna, she's very level-headed in a crisis. So she literally said, I've looked at my costs and I've gone through every single line and I've asked myself, how far can I strip this cost back until the business service delivers?
That's correct, yeah.
And you know, things like fruit in the morning was on that list. You know, it was from the nice to haves right to the, do we really need this?
Yeah, I categorise every member of staff as to how essential, how that sounds awful. I don't mean it like that. I mean, there are skills. My team are specifically with specific skill sets and also different personalities. So I was able to sit there and think, well, I wouldn't lose that person if I stood them down for a bit. Because I know I could switch that person on, but that person over there, they need to be full-time all the time. So really that I need to protect that resource before, so just, basically sitting there and working out how low I could go before I had to start making those changes. And also then, what order those changes would come in. And also, just doing the thing that we all kind of stop doing when we get a bit okay, which is like going through and doing your software audit when you realise that you're buying, an app for everything and twice over, and you haven't really got around to doing anything, and so just having that, going through and discipline and doing that every so often, obviously helps you just be better all round anyway.
Yeah, I know. We did that exercise and we were like, right, actually, this has got to change. So one of the other things you're very good at doing is reframing the situation. So I know you and I looked at it and said, well, actually, look, if this is going, what could be the positives? And we realized that some of those that were meant to be going wouldn't be serviced by anybody else. So actually, it freed you up to be more scalable. We talked about the fact that bringing in new clients would mean that you wouldn't be on some of the low legacy rates. And we realized that actually, if you weren't as chargeable, then you could do more business development. And I remember one thing I challenged you on when you were saying, the world is about to end, I don't have a business, I can't pay for myself. I said, actually, how many are going to leave? And you're like, well, this one definitely is, but not sure about this one, this one, this one, this one. So there was a bit of perspective. So why don't we just put it out to questions? So I know Steph's been asking some questions, which we tried to answer. We've gone, what questions have you got for Lorna on her journey? I'm going to wait for the questions, but I think almost to summarize, it's this intention that's behind your business. You're not one of those people that flies, on the seat of your pants in the moment, are you? There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of forethought. There's a lot of what's going to happen. There's a lot of looking at the numbers. The level of control you have over your business is brilliant. You know what's going to happen when it's going to happen. Let's see if we've got any questions coming. Gareth has said, thank you, Lorna, do love your business model. So that's the Gareth we both know and love.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, Gareth, appreciate it. So Sarah Taylor, hello Sarah, lovely to see you on the pricing workshop. Do you have a minimum fee and service level for clients? I know the minimum fee, I don't know the service level. Do you want to talk through that?
Yeah, the minimum fee is £1,000. I just won't speak to anyone below that. In truth, my average fee is probably more like £3,500 a month.
Yeah.
But I have to say it normally comes in stages.
Yes.
So typically they will probably just engage me as a FD type person, maybe sort of £1,800, £2,000 a month for that. And then quickly they want to backfill with the outsource finance team at the same time, and that builds the cash up. And then what happens is that ultimately my bit becomes a cherry on the cake, so I don't have to do as much work myself, and the team takes it over, and the team then integrates in, and the whole thing becomes part of the overall business, and fairly, part of the, living and breathing function of that firm that we're working with. So it's typically about 3.5.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that you do is you go in on one remit, which is often very much a discovery remit. So for those of you that don't think you can renegotiate your fees, even if you don't do the FD stuff, Lorna is evidence that, box it off for the first 3 months until you really know what you're doing. And then, as you say, you then normally it goes from that 1,800 and suddenly £3,000 a month hits when they're wanting to use Katie in your team, they're wanting to use all sorts in your team, and it happens. What key software did you decide to use, Lorna? Because I know you're a little bit of a sort of squirrel for software.
Yeah, I put software sometimes into my not so great decision making and learning. I am a shiny thing. So there are a few things that I just wouldn't do without. The Xavier Analytics, or Dex Precision, or whatever it's called these days, is a tool that I find my team find massively useful.
Yes, you did once say, I'm never giving up this tool. You're not taking it off me. It's the one tool.
Yeah. I use a program called Time Bro, which for me is invaluable, because it tracks all the activity that I'm doing on a day where I don't have to worry about it, and then I can go and allocate it to my projects based on what I'm doing without thinking, crap, I haven't written that down or logged that in or what have you. And because I work on so many multiple different things, otherwise it's quite hard to deal with. But other than that, practice management, there's another question down there about practice management. Yeah. Same thing. Big issue for me. First of all, I didn't have one, then I needed one, then I've used Trello, Planner. I'm on Centre at the moment, but I'm just moving to Pixie because Centre's just too complicated. It seems to break down every 5 seconds. So, I'm still finding that out, but I have learned a lesson. I got my team involved on the demo, etc., for Pixie, and they made the decision. So I'm not blaming me anymore. It'll be them if it's not.
And I think really with the practice management software, you've got to know what you need it for, because Carbon would be far too much what you're doing, and Carbon is great for all these multiple little tasks, and it is about, as you say, you've got to make sure it's horses for courses. There's a question from Sarah here. How easy do you find it to get your team to deliver higher FD services?
Okay, well, to be honest with you, I kind of don't at the moment. But I think if we look at FD services, certainly when I was delivering them, when I really broke down what I was delivering, most of what I was delivering wasn't FD services. So that's one of the reasons that I backfill. So what I've got is really, really great sort of FC type people who provide me with really, really quality information that allows me to sit and then do my thing with it. So as a freelancer, I could only manage a couple to 3 companies on my own and do everything that's required, whereas I can manage to do so much more. Now, I do need to add another person that is qualified to my level, but I already have a lady that I've worked with in the past that I can bring in when I need to. And I have other people that I'm keeping an eye on, you know, with a view to perhaps bringing them on there and then. But really, I think it's about what I determine is FD service, as opposed to what perhaps is quite often put out there as FD service, you know.
And I think I agree with you, because what we have is, and you and I will talk about this, is we have this whole movement that you have to move beyond compliance. And so you've spent 3 to 4 years training your team to be good at bookkeeping, training your team to be good at financial accounting. And then suddenly you want them to step up into more of an FC, almost do the industry accountant role. And then you wonder why your team members don't want to do it, because they don't have the time to do it well enough. And you know, getting that commercial viewpoint, because you don't look at people in practice, do you? You're buying people with their industry experience.
Yeah, you know, it's just stupid things like my team will have already investigated any variances that they feel are not in line with trends. They will have gone into the business and got an answer, and that will all come back to me before I even look at a set of management accounts. You know, they will have looked at the forecast and made any amendments that they can see, or they've been fed information. All of that stuff will be done. You know, there's so many different things I can't really explain anymore. Let's get rid of the page.
And while you quieten that, I think that the big thing here to realise is we often buy team members for their ability to be an apple, and then we expect them to morph into a pear, and we wonder why they don't. So it is about that. Do you use any pricing software, Lorna?
No.
Because what you're not doing is, you're not doing 500 transactions at this price and a set of year-end accounts. It's very much on how many people do I think is it going to take at what level to deliver this.
Yeah, absolutely. I do just look and see, and I need to put this into some sort of model. I will admit that, but it's just, for years I've been able to look at a set of work and ascertain how much would be needed to be done, and as a result of it, basically I know the cost of my staff, and I can sit there and say, well, okay. And also I have a special way of looking at things, so we don't take something on to just do it the way it's done. I look at it and say, well, that's how long it's taking now. What can we do behind the scenes to, you know, to make that more efficient, etc.
And that's one of the things you do very well, and we didn't bring this out, is you'll start at a certain rate, and then as you get more and more into the client, you'll get efficiencies by how you do things, but the value you deliver is still the same. In fact, it goes up. So very often you renegotiate at a higher fee, and that is how you grow your profitability on a client.
Totally. That's if they haven't come and asked me to put my price up already.
Yeah, because your service is that good that people ask you to do that. So the how did you arrive at that? I don't get out of bed for less than £1,000 a day. Or
you told me.
No, I did. No, actually, I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
But also, you know, there's a question. How do you? And I'll answer that question for you, Jeremy. Is typically Lorna has got such a good idea of where her clients are, unless they're a really fast tech startup. You know, she doesn't take them unless they're a certain revenue, because when you're aware of the business and the typical sizes, you know the sort of structure in a business. And Lorna knows the structure of a business that gets the most from her. Because after all, if you're a business that's only turning over 250k, paying 2, 3, 4 grand to Lorna and her team and still not getting a set of stat accounts out of it at the end doesn't feel like good value. And I know with Lorna, a lot of this, we only work with businesses over this size, has come from tried and tested experience. And as Lorna says, she learns from her mistakes very quickly. So got another question here. I'll answer 2 more questions. Lorna, you've got a fan in Steph. Lorna, you are my hashtag goals.
Sage sales are really persistent. Bugger off.
Yeah. Yes. By the way, Lorna tells it like it is. So Grant's asked a question: are your FD services typically based on a day rate, and is it usually advisory work rather than executional?
No, day rate is a cursed word. We don't do any time-based charging at all. I may in my head cost it on that basis in how much time I think and the cost of that time that it may cost me as a business. But as far as the clients are concerned, it's a fixed fee price for a length of time per month, and I will set out a broad description of what we're doing for that. So, for example, I might say we're doing bookkeeping, including, bookkeeping that includes purchase ledger, for example, but not sales ledger. Or I may say, that we are attending board meetings or what have you. And there are 1 or 2 things that I put in because I want to make sure that they don't think they are included. For example, mergers and acquisitions work, because you can get a whole load of extra work there, so they're not included. But then as a general rule, when we were in the pandemic, a lot of people were sitting there getting grants and what have you for their clients and charging extra for it. But for us, it was part of the service that we provided. It was just something we did. Things change, they're up and down. Like I say, we have a standing brief within us to do things as efficiently and effectively, but whilst delivering good, the same or a better outputs for our customers. The point is, by charging for the hour and the day, what is the incentive to them to get a better service? The onus is on both of us. If we do the fixed fee, it's on I have to deliver it effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to pick up one last question, but Steph, Lorna we have a vision that Lorna will be running a special interest group within the club of members that do a lot of FD type work. So do get in touch, Steph, if you want to talk about joining the club. Lorna is a very valued part of the club, and Lorna and I have had this discussion. We would love to have a special interest group which Lorna runs with our people in the club that do more FD work rather than the sort of day-to-day compliance. So absolutely. So Rob's asking you, how do you find the relationship with the year-end stat accountants, and are there clashes on advice?
Absolutely not. I am not good at everything, and I'm certainly not good at those end of, I've passed the exams. I'm perfectly technically capable of doing it, but it's not my thing. I actually collaborate a great deal with year-end statutory accountants. Most of the companies that I work with are required, or a lot of the companies that I'm worked with are required, not by law because they're not big enough, but by some other requirement to have some sort of audit, be it a light touch or a full audit. And we work with those people. I make recommendations and referrals for that type of work on a regular basis. I do not want, or I'm not interested in that type of compliance work. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a definite collaboration position. I'm not trying to steal anything, that they want to do. In fact, I'd be really happy if they do it for me.
And I think this is a great question to end on, because it helps us summarize, and I need to let Lorna go back to her day job. Is that know your value and know what you're there to do. I think, you know, to use the English phrase, stick to your knitting. And far too often we try and be all things to all people. Oh, we can get a bigger share of their financial spend if we do this, this, and this. Whereas actually, if you work with the true experts, you can have far more of a mutually beneficial relationship by knowing what you're good at, being proud of what you're good at, and knowing how to market that. Because I think that was you've always been good at it. You've always been good at it. And I know there's times where your confidence has made you doubt yourself, but you've always been good at this. The only difference in the last 3 years is you've learned how to market what you do and articulate your difference.
Yeah, and it is hard because people do just have this vision of what an accountant looks like and does. And I would say that even with all the stuff I do on LinkedIn, all the stuff that's on the website, the people, when they come to me, they are still astonished after about the first month of working with us that they had no clue of the service that they would actually get. And that's kind of how I managed to build it, in other words, you know. So I'm like, fine, we'll just go and do a little bit and show them what we can do, and as soon as they realize what we can do, they take the whole lot.
Yeah. And you know, it just goes to show that you can grow a business by delivering great client service with a mix of referrals. You know, you don't have to do the whizzy wacky stuff. Right. Thank you very much, Lorna. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much for everybody for staying, for listening, for some great questions. I don't think we've had this level of questions before.
It's a bit mental, isn't it? I was just trying to read it all and I was like, oh my God, how do I answer it?
That's why I'm here to facilitate the conversation. So thank you, Gareth. We've got some great members here. So thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Coral. And Jigna said, thank you, ladies. That was a very interesting session. Maria said, thank you very much for being an inspiration. Hopefully, Maria, that's giving you a little bit more motivation to go where you want to go. So yeah, it's Steph said it's mainly me fangirling Lorna. Well, Steph, you know where Lorna resides. So thank you very much, Lorna. I will speak with you tomorrow and I'll speak with everybody else soon. Appreciate that one. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.